shalom b'maromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Yaseh shalom, shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol
ידיד נפש אב הרחמן, אב הרחמן, משוך עבדך
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Micah, where you can be virtually guaranteed that the music will be outstanding. I'm Rabbi Flip. We have the A team for you this evening. It is nice to have Miss Lisa with us again in the flesh. Jerry Kimbrough is in the house. We're going to hear from Shabbat Shabbat. Rabbi Lori will share words of Torah. Most importantly, you are watching, and we so appreciate that you're part of our virtual community. Together, we are going to invite the Sabbath into our homes and into our hearts. And we're going to begin as God did at the very beginning by bringing order to chaos and light to darkness. But before we do that, our Torah portion this week contains famous words, powerful words about going forth and not knowing the land in which Abraham will arrive. This journey, writes Dr. Andrew Rayfield, will lead to the Jewish people's everlasting covenant. And it is a voyage that is fraught with peril, overcome by faith. We, too, are in the midst of an unanticipated journey during these highly uncertain and anxious times. And tonight, we will dig deep into the well of optimism and pray for better days ahead. A milestone on this journey is coming up in the next few days. The presidential election on Tuesday, November 3rd, represents a critical moment when we as American citizens have the freedom and responsibility, the ability to respond, to exercise our constitutional right of self-determination, something we Jews understand the importance of given our history of our wandering. May the light of righteousness determine the next stage of our journey together. We bring light into this sacred place as well.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu
We continue by inviting those sacred angels into our homes and into this space with the words of Shalom Aleichem. The angels listen for your singing. They do.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא כולכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שלום עליכם מלכי השרת מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ברכוני לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ברכוני לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שלום עליכם מלכי השרת מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא זכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא זכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שלום עליכם מלכי השרת מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. You know, very often I'll be asked, hey, are there bar bat mitzvahs still happening at Congregation Micah? Of course there are still bar and bat mitzvahs happening at Congregation Micah, and usually an intimate circle of immediate family gathers here. And that's going to happen not tomorrow, but next week. And to practice that, we have Rose Collins, who's going to do the Hatzi Kaddish for us, if it works.
Yikaravi Karash Shmei Rabba Bayamati Rahirte Vayamlik Malhute Bachaychon Uvyon Mechon Uvkaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Ubitzman Kariv Vimru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mavora La'olam Alay Olamaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'Yitkadash V'Yipa'ar V'Yitromam V'Yitnaseh V'Hadar V'Aleh V'Halal Shemei Dikudusha Barihu La'ela Minko Birchata V'Shirata Tushbehata V'Ne'emata Da'amiran Be'elma V'Imru Amen.
Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Vaed HaMevorach HaMevorach together the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Leolam Vaed. And you will love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. And you will teach them diligently unto your children. And you will speak of them when you're sitting in your house, when you're walking by the way, and when you're lying down, and when you're rising up, and when you're rising up. And you will bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they will be for frontlets between your eyes. And you will write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you will remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
It's such a beautiful translation of actual words of Torah, the words of the Ve'ahavta, this idea we shall love. There's a part that wasn't translated in the beautiful song. And it says, Asher chotzeti me'eretz Mitzrayim, the one that brought you out from the land of Egypt. And it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey that Abraham begins this week in the Torah. It's the journey that the Israelites were on. It's the journey we have spent in the diaspora, traveling oceans. My ancestors, immediately, great-grandparents, came over through water and arrived in a new land. And it's the journey we will continue, as I spoke at the beginning of the service. And it's a journey we don't take alone. It's a journey we take in community. And it's a journey we celebrate here at Micah through song. And so we are very thankful to have Shabbat Shaband singing our Micah Mocha, the song of deliverance, this evening.
One, 2, 3, 4. Bye. We sing words of protection from the Hashkivenu prayer as the evening falls, asking God to spread over us a shelter of peace, a Sukkot Shlomecha, with the words of Ufros Aleinu. Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot, Sukkot, Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot, Sukkot, Shlomecha, Yailai, lai, lai, Yailai, lai, lai, Yailai, lai, lai, la, lai, 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 Yailai, lai, lai, Yailai, lai, lai, Yailai, lai, lai, la, lai, lai, lai. Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot, Sukkot, Shlomecha. We honor the covenant with God, celebrating Shabbat, a day of joy, a day of rest, a day of peace, with the words of Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael HaShabbat, HaShabbat, Lasot HaShabbat, Ladorotam, Berit Olam, Berit Olam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, Odhi leolam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, Odhi leolam. Ki sheshet yamim asar onai, asar onai, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat, Shabbat, vayinafar. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, Odhi leolam. השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ברית עולם.
Such a beautiful thing, at least for me, to hear you live, Miss Lisa and Jerry. It makes me feel very grateful. And that's an important thing. I have a friend, Rabbi Eve Posen. She lives on the West Coast, and they have a preschool as part of her congregation. And, you know, every morning in our preschool, which is still open, classes begin with free play. You know, there are options to sort of build with blocks or to draw or to read or explore. And one young lady loves dress up. I mean, sometimes the outfits are hilarious. Layers and layers piled on her body. Sometimes she's a doctor, sometimes she's a waitress, sometimes she's a princess and a mommy, all sorts of imaginative things, because creative play, it's a staple in our preschool classrooms, because using your imagination allows children to sort of try on different roles and explore what it means to be a leader or a follower, to discover what feels comfortable, what feels unique and different. And it's natural for there to be a lot of sort of gender fluidity in early childhood development. That doesn't mean that genders are changing. It means children experiment with different roles. And at the earliest stages, play is without gender or stereotype. And there's great strength and beauty when children explore their worlds. And what they're looking for, I think, is their authentic selves. As adults, it's easy to sort of get stuck in a rut, being who we think we're supposed to be, instead of being our authentic selves. And this challenge of sort of human adult life, it's been around for a long time. In fact, the same thing happened to Avraham Avinu, to Abraham, our ancestor, our father. This week in Parashat Lech Lecha, meaning go forth, right? And in it, we are introduced to Avram and Sarai. Their names become Abraham and Sarah. And they become the great matriarch and patriarch for the rest of our journey, the rest of our narrative. And we learn that Abraham follows God with full intent, without questioning. And that Sarah, she has faith too. She goes with him. God tells them to leave home, leave the only house you've ever known, to go to a place you know nothing about. He's following God's voice, and they're taking a leap of faith. And the text begins, Vayomer Adonai el Avram, the Eternal said to Avram, Lech lecha, go forth, me'artzecha, from your native land, umimoledechtecha, from your birthplace, umibeit avicha, from the house of your parents. Go forth. So the Mei HaShiloach, a compilation of teachings by Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Lanier, translates this in a midrash as, go forth to find your authentic self, to learn who you're meant to be. In other words, the text lists the various levels of leaving or exploration we all must go through as people in order to sort of identify what our true authentic selves are like. And to add to this concept, to whatever we already know about Avraham, is to find yourself sort of saying, is this true about me? It's physically seeking out the voice inside in order to be your best. And to do it, there's a journey to travel, right? That's the hardest part of the journey, is the possibility that some less authentic part of us has to be shed in order to make a new discovery. But we learn that Abraham and Sarah and each one of us must go forth and explore, because only then can we be sure to bring our greatest gifts into the world. Not just because it's demanded of us, but because it will set us on a greater path to peace. So we're going to enter the inner sanctuary now, not just here at Micah. I'm going to open the ark doors, but the inner sanctuary of the soul, where our true, authentic selves live. And Miss Lisa's going to take us there with the opening words, and then we're going to leave a little silence, and then she'll take us out.
Anananananana, Adonai. Ananananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ananananana, Adonai. Ananananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ananananana, Adonai. Ananananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ananananana, Adonai. Ananananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ananananana, Adonai. Ananananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Tsuri Begoali Amen.
We are surrounded by sickness. And one of the things that would bring us solace and comfort, human touch, is not a solution. So at Micah, we turn to many places. We turn to each other virtually if we need to. We turn to others in our community. We turn to a source greater than ours, and we ask for help. We mention my name specifically, members of this community or members of people of other communities who feel close to members of our community, so they make our list. And if you are thinking of someone, you say the name at home too, but you can also call our office or email us and tell us a name. The names I mention currently are Craig Smith and Rabbi Robert Nosenchuk and David Heller and Ilana Fisher-Burkhart and Lindsay Benjamin and Mary Frank and Sonia Marco and Ava Doyle and Jan Sullivan Ladder and Steve Geringer and Jennifer Phelps. And if there's a name I mention and you know they're doing better and they want to come off the list, you can call and email us that too. But certainly if you know of someone else, we invite you to say that name now. We invite you to sing at home with us as we sing here.
For the hurt of body and of soul, for the suffering and pain, as you heal the ones who came before, may you heal us just the same. רפואה לנפש והגוף, אל נא רפאנה. רפאנו אדוני, רפואה שלמה. For the hurt of body and of soul, for the suffering and pain, as you heal the ones who came before, may you heal us just the same. רפואת הנפש והגוף, אל נא רפאנה. רפאנו אדוני, רפואה שלמה. As you heal the ones who came before, may you heal us just the same.
One of the things we remain thankful for is technology, and Rabbi Lori has some words of Torah about civil discourse we're going to share now, and the technology will allow her to share a teaching as well.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Tonight, I would like to share some Torah with you, and so I begin with the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, divine spirit, who commands us to engage in the study of Torah. In truth, tonight I actually would like to engage with you around Talmud. It's Talmud, Jewish legal teachings, on the subject of machloket, on the subject of arguing. Now, I'll pause here for your favorite jokes about Jews and arguing, because we all have either heard one or know one. 2 Jews, 3 opinions, right? Jews, in fact, like to argue. From our youngest days, we are taught to question to an almost pathological degree. God's people know how to argue about everything. It is part and parcel of who we are. It is both our greatest weakness, but also our greatest strength. And it's true. We, the Jewish people, like to argue, but we also appreciate the trappings of a civil society. And so the formula is to take machloket and derech eretz, put them together, and you have the Jewish recipe for a civil society. So you take machloket, argument, and derech eretz, respect, and when you put the two together, you have a civil society. So let me tell you a little bit more about what I mean. Let's take a look at the first of 2 texts that I would like to share with you on this Shabbat. The last Shabbat before Halloween and before our national election, 2 events or days on which I plan to consume a great deal of candy. Pirkei Avot, often translated as Ethics of Our Fathers, is a tractate, a section of the Mishnah, which is one of the 2 components that make up the Talmud, the compendium of Jewish law. In chapter 5 of Pirkei Avot, we read, "Every dispute that is for the sake of heaven will in the end endure, but one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. Which is the controversy that is for the sake of heaven? Such was the controversy of Hillel and Shammai. And which is the controversy that is not for the sake of heaven? Such was the controversy of Korach and all his congregation." Okay, so every dispute that is for the sake of heaven, the Hebrew is L'Shem Shamayim, will endure, according to our text. What makes an argument or a dispute L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven? The rabbis tell us that it has to be like those of Hillel and Shammai. So who were Hillel and Shammai? You may have heard Rabbi Flip or I use these names, these terms over the years. Well, rather than actual people, they were houses of study in Babylonia after the first exile in 586 BCE. And they had strongly differing opinions on all sorts of ritual and religious matters. One would say that we are to stand during the recitation of the Shema, but the other would say, no, we're meant to be seated. One might say that Shabbat ends when there are 3 visible stars in the sky. The other might say Shabbat ends 25 hours after it begins. The text continues, our text for tonight from Pirkei Avot, continues to say that a dispute or argument that is not for the sake of heaven was like that of Korach and his congregation, his people. So let me remind you who Korach was. Korach was an Israelite who was upset with the allocation of power in his community. And so he and his followers rise up to challenge Moses' leadership. They pretend that their argument is one of holiness by clothing it in words of equity. Korach asks why only Moses has access to the Holy of Holies. Shouldn't all Jews be offered such access? But Korach's real purpose is to overthrow Moses' leadership. He has no thought of expanding access to holiness. He intentionally misunderstands Moses' leadership and uses it as a lever to turn the people away from him. His end goal is not communal harmony, but rather to usurp power. Korach wants to win. And this is what keeps his argument from being L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Korach is only focused on an end goal, and it's a goal of winning with a focus on power. What Korach doesn't understand, is that even if one does not win in Judaism, it does not invalidate the minor position. What we argue about and how we argue about it matters. We have to believe that what we believe and the beliefs of our opponents are l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, even if we don't agree. It means assuming that there could be a position out there that is not our own, that in fact has legitimacy. We need to be looking for the best solution rather than the most power. So let's go to the second text. In this text, Rabbi Oshaya asks, what does it mean when it is written, and now he quotes from the book of Zechariah, one of our prophets, what does it mean when it is written there in the book of Zechariah? And I took for myself 2 staves. The one I called Noam, grace. The other I called Hovlim, damages. And by the way, if you're thinking about having a child, Noam is a beautiful name, but Hovlim, not so much. The text goes on to say that Noam, grace, refers to Torah scholars in the land of Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, who are gracious to one another in arguments of halakha, of Jewish law. They treat each other with honor and with love. And who are the Hovlim, the damages? These are the Torah scholars in Babylonia who injure each other by speaking harshly to one another in arguments of halakha, of Jewish law. Let's continue on. Similarly, it is stated in the book of Zechariah, these are the 2 anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl and the other upon its left. And the rabbis of the Talmud ask the question regarding this particular verse, what does the 2 anointed ones mean or refer to? And Rabbi Yitzhak says, oh, the 2 anointed ones refers to Torah scholars in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. They are pleasant to each other in halakhic, in legal debate, just like olive oil, which is smooth and not bitter. And where it says, and 2 olive trees by it, what do the 2 olive trees represent? Rabbi Yitzhak says, these are the Torah scholars in Babylonia, who are bitter to each other in legal halakhic debate, just like an olive is bitter. So I would propose there are 2 things necessary for good, respectful Jewish dispute. 1, as the first text demonstrated, we must recognize that a dispute or an argument should be about an issue and not about simply gaining power. And 2, as this most recent text demonstrates, that we see our opponents as people whom we care about, that we be gracious and bring our best selves to the conversation. I can think of no better example of this in our day than our very own Thursday morning Schmooze and Views group. It meets now virtually to discuss all sorts of political and social issues. The room is filled with folks on the left and the right of the political spectrum, and even when the conversation gets heated, and I know it has, which it can from time to time, the debates are, in my opinion, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, rooted in deep respect for one another despite differences. The discussion is about issues and solutions rather than power. But I'm going to say that there are 2 more things necessary for good, hearty Jewish dispute. The third thing necessary for respectful Jewish arguing is this. If there is truth, we will understand it better if we can hear all options, which is why our tradition preserves the dissenting opinion. Arguments and disputation can be a means of finding truth and strengthening community. The Mishnah is based on representing different opinions on many topics. Our rabbis ask, why are multiple opinions preserved? After all, in most disputes, We know who has the answer we follow in our practice. So why tell us about the opinions that we don't follow? First, say the rabbis, we may find ourselves later facing a changed circumstance in which a rejected opinion may become necessary for practice. A thoughtful rabbinic opinion deserves to be saved, knowing that someday the dissent may be more important than the accepted decision itself. And second, while one opinion must win as practice, all sides of the dispute are attempting to learn more about God. These are the ways of God Most High, says our tradition. Elu ve'elu. In other words, finite beings like me and you can only grasp the infinite through contradiction. For example, God is both beyond our grasp and immediately present. We are both created in the image of God, and we are but dust and earth. Both are true, and the Jewish endeavor is to find a holy place that grasps the opposing truths. Holy arguments are vital, unholy, destructive. People who love one another have to argue because it reflects how much they care about each other. I'm a different person than my sister-in-law. Therefore, she and I have different sense of what matters. As a result, we sometimes disagree and argue because we care about what the other does. This is an argument for the sake of heaven. Such arguments in the long term strengthen our connection. Sometimes, though, people argue only to work through their own issues or to take advantage of someone else. And in such a case, this serves just to damage a relationship. Name-calling is a good sign of a disagreement, not for the purpose of heaven. Such arguments are destructive. They tear people apart and they ultimately hurt communities. Such arguments never resolve anything, but they ultimately disappear because they damage the very community themselves. I truly believe that it is a strength of the Jewish people that we argue. And so on this Shabbat, and in the coming weeks and week, let's do our best to respect one another's passions, that many will feel vulnerable and even fearful. Let's be extra attentive so that our arguments are l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, to build rather than to destroy. Let's learn from our fellow schmoozers. Friendship and community is more important than any stance or debate. And that's what we ultimately are, a loving, respectful, and caring Micah community. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Aleinu, it means it is incumbent upon us. I would probably, and many people would echo, say it's incumbent upon us to vote. In this case, it is incumbent upon us, l'shabeach la'adon hakol, to recognize that great power in the universe.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Those of you who may be close with Larry and Ann Evans, we join you in wishing our condolences on the death of Anne's sister, Elaine Farinacci, and of our own member, Des Zamek. And if you know Paul, we are, of course, thinking about you and praying for you. We continue to mourn in the recent passings of Rich Michelle, Henry E. Foyer, Dr. Bob Sirkin, Aidan Becker, and Robert Golden. We recall the anniversaries of their deaths: Lorraine Amelio, Selma Vivian Bear, Dr. Howard C. Barron, Elizabeth Hare Kurland, Roger H. Eppinger, Bernard Hindus, Bessie Jacobs, Marlene Fragman Karp, Lillian Coral, Evelyn Lippy, Bob Murray, Sarah Schwartz, and two names I read of people who had a tremendous impact on my life. My mom's best friend when I was growing up, like an aunt, Thea Godofsky, and my grandfather, Dr. Sidney S. Rice. I invite you to add names of people you may be aware of that have passed, and I invite you to either join or listen to the words of Kaddish Yatom, our mourners' Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomachon uv'chayei d'kol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mebarak le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nekamata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. A few announcements that I pre-recorded for you. A few announcements regarding some upcoming events. As always, please check the website for our most updated information and Zoom links. Hey, did you enjoy the service this evening? Do you want to interact with Rabbi Lori? Perhaps ask her a question about her sermon? Torah study begins at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning on Zoom. It's deep conversations in a compassionate crowd, so sign on. Also tomorrow morning at 9:30, we're doing a Purim redo. That is, there's a special Halloween edition, family-friendly experience. We can sing and dance, led by Miss Lisa Silver and Julie Greenberg, Micah Minis. This Sunday morning at 10:30, my friend and colleague from Philadelphia, Rabbi Ethan Franzel, a meditation and Kabbalah expert, will teach on Zoom, Seeing Beneath the Surface, how spirituality transformed the Jewish people and we didn't even know it. Don't be intimidated. Reviews are in. He is terrific. Book club meeting via Zoom takes place Monday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. They'll be discussing the book The Vanishing Hall by Britt Bennett. All, of course, are welcome. Schmooze and Views, our place for political conversation. We'll certainly be discussing the election. Will take place on Thursday at 10:30, also available on Zoom. And a special program being hosted November 8th and 15th by Braver Angels with Malice Towards None. The days following the presidential election may become the most divisive period in our history, no matter who wins. And at a moment of danger in this area of divisiveness, we, the people, are going to come together to speak for our union. You can register on the Micah events page. The Bellevue Community Food Bank that we always partner with is having a drop-off December 5th. For more information, you can visit our social action page. And are you Jewish enough? On the second Friday of each month, Jewish or not, you can join this monthly discussion with Rabbi Lori and Rabbi Jen Lader of Temple Israel in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, about all things Jewish. They explore prayer and spirituality and the nature of God, Israel, Jewish superstitions, a whole bunch of stuff. And we'd love to have you. That's what I got. We wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Okay. So, one more announcement. I mentioned we were on a journey. It's a journey of the heart and the soul. It's a journey of a community. And it's a journey also in which we are taught to be thankful for all the blessings And we know that sacred holiday of Thanksgiving is coming. And so if you are feeling thankful about anything about Congregation Micah, I want you to email Celia Lurch. And if you do that, it could be about the technology. It could be that there are words on the screens. It could not what you don't like, what you're thankful for. That's what we're looking. And if you do that, then we're going to include you in something special. You'll get an email from me that will take place on Thanksgiving weekend, on the Shabbos of Thanksgiving. So be a part of that by sending something that you're really appreciative for, like maybe Misty, who's running this whole thing behind the screens, or Live Control. We want to thank Live Control for capturing us and doing this. And thank you, Jerry. And oh my God, what an honor to have you make Kiddush in person and to see you like this. That's why I'm wearing the mask, everyone. I'm ready when you're ready.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'ratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to sing you out with Miss Lisa with words of peace.
Oh, say shalom, shalom b'mromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael ve'emru amen. Uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael, amen. Say shalom, shalom b'mromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael ve'emru